There's a lot going on in this movie.
It was like I was watching it for the first time.
I like this movie.
It has a special place in my heart.
Very close to my heart.
This was a good one.
I want to like this movie.
What? Seriously?
I loved it.
Very flat, kind of boring.
This movie blows me away. This movie turns me on.
Terrible. It is terrible. All these keys everywhere. Influences, baby.
Huge, huge fan.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
Hello and welcome out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast and YouTube channel where two guys get together. We talk about horror and science fiction films and television, key influences on the particular topic of the week, and then things that topic influenced and key relevances going forward. We've been doing it for quite a few years now, and we're so glad to continue to do it thanks to support from some of you guys out there. If you are new to us, we would love to have your support. We'd love to get to know you. Email us, like, subscribe, do all those fun things that you need to do. And we'd love to hear your opinions on what our opinions are. My name is David. I'm here with my good friend Tim, who we've been doing this. Well, we've been doing it a lot longer than we've been talking about film a lot longer than we have on a podcast. But Tim, what have you been up to? What have you been doing this week?
Oh, you almost betrayed our age.
Oh, no, I did not. Never.
Oh my gosh. What have I been doing? Well, we normally start these little episodes with an icebreaker before we get into the main topic. And we talk about something we possibly have done in our genre week. And I did something deep in my genre week this week.
Okay.
I watched a little movie called MaXXXine.
Oh, wow. See, you've beat me to all three of the trilogy. So there you go.
Have I? No, you beat me to X.
I thought you had seen X first, right?
No, you beat me to X, and then I beat you to Pearl and MaXXXine. But
so the porn one
say,
pulled me in, but the other two you beat me, huh? I guess. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Guess
anyway,
so.
Go ahead.
This movie is not as good as its predecessors.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
However, it is everything you want it to be.
Okay.
So I don't hate it. It is a direct sequel to the movie X because Pearl was a flashback story, a predecessor, prequel, whatever. This is a loving homage to slasher films of the 1980s, but it's also a great tribute to Hollywood, the glory and the seedy underbelly of Hollywood.
Okay.
So you've got, it hits a lot of things you and I love. I have not seen the Hollywood movie that Tarantino did, but I have a feeling there's a little bit of that in it too. The cast, the cast is top notch, including Mia Goth reprising her role as Maxine Miller. It also includes Kevin Bacon, Bobby Cannavale, Giancarlo Esposito, and Elizabeth Debicki, who just won an Emmy for playing Princess Di in The Crown. So she's an unfamiliar face, but she's notable.
Okay.
The synopsis is in 80s Hollywood, adult film star and aspiring actress Maxine Minx Miller. Actually, maybe they call her Maxine Minx, as it may be her stage name. Anyway, finally, she gets her big break, and it's in a movie called The Puritan 2.
Okay.
She's cast as a secondary character in a horror movie. But as a mysterious killer stalks the starlets of Hollywood, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. So her past comes back to haunt her in this. Remember how we were talking about we didn't know whether she would be a killer or how they would make this movie? Because she really wasn't a killer in the first movie. She killed Pearl and her husband because they were trying to kill her.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. So they do all that splendidly as far as explaining that she could potentially have murderous instincts, but there's actually a murderer after her. And The
Is
whole
the murderer
background.
after her, or just after she just happens to be one of the victims that comes up or
Well,
whatever?
she's connected to the victims, and as a result, it ends up
Uh,
being connected to
okay.
her. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I won't say any more about it. Like I said, it gets, I think, 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. Pearl got 93 and X got 94. I would bump this movie up to the 80s because it's appropriate. It was set in the 80s. So,
Well, makes perfect logic there.
oh my
Yes.
God. And Kevin Bacon is fantastic in this movie. There's there's the obvious logic problems with most horror movies, but it's still a lot of fun, even though it's not as good as Pearl. Pearl was just the crown in this jewel, or the jewel in this crown of this trilogy, I think.
Pearl is brilliant.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Okay, well, I went into your territory. We were talking before we started recording about comfort food and comfort watching. And I mentioned that a lot of times for me, if it's a comfort thing, I just want it on so I can pop in and out, watch, and not have to really focus on it like for an in-depth review or discussion or whatever. So it tends to be something I've seen before that I'm reevaluating and watching again. And a couple of months ago, I did Hill House. I
Yes.
revisited Hill House.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I watched all but 2 episodes. It was interesting because I said, "Oh, I'm only going to watch the first one again." And
Oh,
then I
good
thought,
luck.
I'm only going to watch the last one, and then oh no, the one about the drugs. Oh no, the Bitnik lady. Oh no, the dual storm one, which is
Storms,
my
yeah.
favorite episode. So anyway, I finished it, but this week I started Usher and watched Usher again, and it was interesting because the finale was on my iPad, and I saw it and I went, why did I download that? I've already watched it. Well, let's watch it. So I watched the whole Raven episode, which made me say, oh, I got to go back and watch the first one. So I watched the first one again. And of course, the third one, because that's the one with the acid rain. Spoiler. Oh my gosh, spoilers, guys. We're going to do that. So, but I haven't finished it yet, but it is just marvelously put together. And I'm sure within a month or two from now, I'll do Midnight Mass again too, which is
I
my
have been
other one.
itching to watch Midnight Mass again, but I've
Mhm.
also been itching to watch Hill House again.
Well, you need to watch Hill House again. You definitely do. I think end up becoming a classic, of course. A Midnight Mass should, but I don't think it appeals to as many people as the vintageness or the uniqueness of Hill House was.
Well, and if you ever go
Um,
to Netflix, especially around Halloween, they're going to suggest Hill House. That's their go-to of all
yeah,
of Flanagan stuff. It's always Hill House.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I brought it up when I mentioned a few months ago about Hill House. Was he's got The Exorcist coming? He's got the whole Dark Tower thing
Well, it's
coming.
supposedly he's working on it. Yeah.
So we'll see how that works, and if it works out great, and it should with him. But even what was the one with the kids? The YA one, Midnight Club,
Midnight Club.
and even it has some really great characters
It
and
was fine.
it was a good series. I wish they had kept at least one more season of it.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if he somehow revisited it down the road, not necessarily anytime soon. Yeah.
I could see that. I could see that. And I think I mentioned it when did do Hill House, but if not, it came up while I was looking at this thing. Yeah, I should look up Usher and watch it again. Hush is now getting a re-release with a big DVD special and a behind the scenes and all of this stuff.
Well, I sent you a
So,
link, I think yesterday, about a DVD release of Hill House with extra footage, director's cut.
oh my gosh. Well, then I've got to buy it probably. Now, unfortunately, you have to watch it a third time.
I don't even know if we mentioned his name, folks, but we're talking Mike Flanagan here. He directed
Oh
everything
yeah,
David and I have just been talking about. He's a phenomenal
maybe.
director out there. And he is, I would have to say, The Dark Tower is probably the most excited I am about anything that could potentially coming out, other than the Interview with the Vampire series. It's like right up there, both of them. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to a Dark Tower series if he does it.
And I think what works for him is as a director, he casts this same cadre, this same group of actors and actresses, and finds new ones all the time to supplement it, which is great. And he comes from a writing background, so I think he understands character and pacing and storytelling a lot better than some of the visual directors who are really good, but you have to go with them sometimes. So that even happens with Eggers in a couple of places about, okay, so all right, I'll buy that one for the next 10 minutes and then we'll keep going. Because it looks
they all have their strengths. Eggers is very visual, and Ari Aster is very controversial. And Flanagan is just good. He's like the modern horror equivalent of Orson Welles. Think about
that's
it.
That's a pretty good key reference to him. Yeah, I would
It
agree with
is.
that.
He had a theatrical troupe. He was always recasting the same people. He was a writer as well as a director and an actor. Well, Mike's not an actor, but
whereas Eggers is very Kubrick. It's the image and the shot and the lighting and what will be the most controversial or unique or different aspect of this visual.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a very good.
And then Ty West is very good at period pieces. All these horror directors have their strengths. I just think Flanagan is the best of all because he can do anything pretty much.
Agreed. I agree with you totally. And he's scary, which is good. He scares, but also has some really interesting characters always in his stories.
Well, what a nice segue, because we're going to talk about something that's very scary with very interesting characters.
That's true. That is true.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I can't wait to dive into today's topic because I can't wait to hear your reaction.
Okay.
We're talking about a little movie that came out in 2009 called The Loved Ones. This movie is directed by Sean Byrne. We have covered his other movie. I say his other because he's only done one other called, now I can't remember the name of it.
Devil's Candy.
The Devil's Candy, right. And I love that movie. I think you were back and forth on it. He's a very rock and roll director. He likes to use a lot of hard rock in his soundtrack. This particular movie is very unique in that it is small, which is those stories I like, basically about a boy named Brent that swerves to miss hitting somebody standing in the road and accidentally kills his father in a head-on collision with a tree. 6 months later, he is still obviously shaken up by this. He does what, I can't remember the term for it, people that cut themselves as like a therapy because they're depressed or suicidal, whatever. His mother is obviously suffering too. He does have a girlfriend named Holly, and you get to see them in high school for a bit. And he has a friend whose name I cannot remember. Jamie, I think is his name. And they're both talking about going to the prom. Of course, he's taking Holly. Jamie asks Mia, this really goth-looking chick, and she surprises him. By accepting. So they're all planning on going to the prom. And as he's walking to his car or leaving school, he is approached by another girl named Lola that asks him to go to the dance. And he politely declines because he's going with his girlfriend, Holly. Later on that day, before Holly comes to pick him up, he is out feeling suicidal. I don't know what it is. He's out meditating by himself with headphones up on a cliff. He climbs this rock cliff. It's treacherous at times when it looks like he may fall. And somebody conks him out on the back of the head and takes him away. He wakes up to find that he is now the prisoner of Lola and her father and what appears to be her lobotomized mother. And she's having her own little prom date with him and her family at her house, holding him prisoner. And I will leave it at that without summing up the ending, because I'm sure we'll get into some conversation about that.
Yeah, and that was actually very good without a lot of spoilers. Basically, you could tell from the poster that she has a drill aimed at the viewer, and says prom night can be torture, which is the subheading of the movie.
Right.
So yeah.
And I know you have an aversion to torture porn,
Mm-hmm.
and this movie does dive deeply into that subgenre. But I think this movie has a lot more going for it, and especially with influence, because you can just pluck keys out of this movie left and right.
Oh yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to cover it. Another reason is because of Sean Byrne, who I think is an extremely talented director that doesn't do enough movies. However, he has one coming out, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
That's one of my biggest things is I was curious about his history and well, first of all, movie wise, then we'll get into that
Sure.
production stuff. But movie wise, no, I had never seen this movie. I'd never heard of this movie.
It's a weird title.
But it was the same way with Devil's Candy. I don't think I'd heard of it either when we saw it. And my key takeaways are I liked it. I did. It's very he's got his own style, like what we were talking about with Mike Flanagan.
Mm-hmm.
He is not afraid to go broad and go big.
I would say he's loud.
Yeah, I think he's very loud. You said he likes a lot of rock and roll. No, he likes like metal, like like bang your head against a tree metal stuff.
I think if you remember right, when we covered the Devil's Candy, he somehow got a clip to Metallica, and they immediately said, "You can use our music."
Yeah, but he deals with pain really well. I think his pacing is really strong. His casting is great. I think the casting in this works, even though you could tell a couple of them probably weren't accomplished actors, but they're good at the role. The only negatives I really have, because you said torture porn, and yes, I think this does classify as that, but it's more of to me, it's without giving a key, it's very Texas Chainsaw-y. There's justification for the dementia, if that makes sense. What they're doing makes sense in their world, maybe not in ours or in most humans' worlds, but for them, this is totally a normal date. And they've done it several times.
Yes.
It's when
she is not his first prom date.
Yeah.
Or he is not her first prom date, I should say.
Well, and I don't know. I think he is her first prom date, but not her first date, not her first night out.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe she's had other dates. They just weren't prom related.
Yeah, because I got the impression from the photo album that she's been doing this since she was like freaking 9.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened in the past couple of months. It's been But the only thing that's a negative, I think, in this movie, because the ending works, I think the setup works at the beginning, the cast, of course. The only thing that's weird is this subplot with the friend and the goth girl, which is our cutaway to give us some relief from the torture, but nothing happens.
I love that subplot.
You could cut them entirely out of this movie and still have the same movie.
No, you can't, because she is the sister of the boy that was in the road that he swerved to miss and killed his father.
Yeah, and her father is the policeman that she kills.
Right. So it's very small.
A little,
and
okay, but
I like that you don't know that at first. And then you realize, oh, she's suffering too because her brother is the one that got killed.
But we don't really get that until the last, 15 minutes, right before Daddy dies.
Well, he has to concentrate on the story.
Does he, though?
This movie is not perfect. I'll give you that. It's not a perfect story. I just really appreciate it. Very much like MaXXXine. I appreciate it for what it is.
I was thinking, in the whole finale thing, the whole run along the highway thing, I was thinking, the friend is going to hit her. He's going to be coming home from this prom date, and he's going to hit her. And that's why they're tied into the story. But it didn't happen that way. And I was going, so why is he in the story? Why? I love their characters. And I thought it was that alternative prom sub story. He kept saying, "You think we should go in now?" And then no, more drinking,
and
more,
smoking pot, and then
yeah,
she ends up having sex with him. And
yeah.
I was like, so you've got the whole nerd guy with the hot goth girl.
Well,
So I love the subplot of that. I thought it was great.
I liked them. I just didn't see why they were in this story. I even liked the whole thing about the chaperone knocking on the window when they're right in the middle of sex, and it goes, "When I said somewhere else, I meant not the parking lot."
But the story had to have secondary characters to intervene, one being them and the other being her father. So otherwise, there would have been no conflict at all. It would just still be him trying to escape on his own.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
and the
do think it
girlfriend.
needed the secondary characters, and you don't want to spend the whole time worrying with the mom or the mom and the cop accusing each other of what happened to your son. Now my son's missing, but they didn't do enough of that. I thought a little bit more of that would have been interesting.
A good scene between her dad and his mom would have
Yeah,
worked. Yeah,
yeah,
because they
and you
have
saw
that connection.
in retrospect, once I learned that, oh, that was his son, and oh, he was the cause of the whole father being killed and the other, blah, 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 the cycle of it, or the cyclical, I was thinking, oh, so that makes sense why there's so much tension between the two of
The two
them.
families, yes.
When she calls him and he has to show up and go talk to her and see the evidence that the boy's missing and yada, yada. And
Right.
it's just reminds him of 6 months earlier when his son went missing.
Yes, and a second viewing of this, and you see that and you look for it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's great, but if it's not as clear to a first viewing, sometimes that's a little too ambiguous. I like the ambiguity of it, but I also look at the story structure and stuff like that.
Yeah, me
So,
too. So,
yeah.
but
You mentioned Sean Byrne. Why isn't he doing more? I said this when we did Devil's Candy. I'm like, he did this in 2009. He did Devil's Candy in like 2015. When he is not directing these, he directs shorts and advertising for Renegade Films in Melbourne, Australia. This is an Australian film, by the way, folks. I don't know if we said that up front. He has directed spots for Cadbury's, Nintendo, and Ford. So he directs big time commercials, and I'm assuming makes a lot of money doing that, probably.
oh, I'm sure. Well, so did Tony Scott before Tony Scott made his movie.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's a good key. However, I, in my excitement, was looking to see if he had something coming out, and he has a movie in post-production right now called Dangerous Animals.
No.
It is
lovely.
This is the plot. When Zephyr, a savvy and free-spirited surfer, is abducted by a shark-obsessed serial killer and held captive on his boat, she must figure out how to escape before he carries out a ritualistic feeding to the sharks below.
Damn.
I was like, this is intense, and it's all on one boat.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I am looking forward to that. But back to today's topic.
Human Jaws.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Scenes?
Let's see. Yeah, I don't have any other, I don't think, as far as background info. Lots of scenes. My favorite, well, you know what my favorite's probably going to be. And that's when you see what's down in the cellar.
Oh, I knew you would love that. Yeah.
Because the whole time you're thinking, oh my God, they're all alone. He's this victim in her kitchen. And then it turns out, nope, all the other victims are still there. They're just down in the basement.
Yep.
And they've all been lobotomized, and they're cannibal humanoids, very much like another movie that I have a key for.
Yeah, very much. Well, it's interesting in my watch notes, very early on, I've got, wait, that chair is locked into the floor. Have they done this before? Or is this just the first time? That's one of my notes from the very beginning of the movie.
Astute observation.
So yes, I could see how that would be one of your favorite scenes.
All you see is little white bodies, naked bodies scurrying around in the dark, like cockroaches when they open up that cellar, that giant cellar door.
I liked I liked his wake up scene in the room after the abduction when he
Mhm.
wakes up, and just the way he shoots it makes you tense just watching it. And the long shot, you see him and he's slowly waking up and his head's tilting back and all that stuff. And when he finally focuses, you see down the table and just the dad, but it's out of focus, and then it comes into focus, and then all of a sudden her head comes in from the side, just going, "Hey," you're going, "Oh shit, this is not
Right.
good."
Yeah. And
Um,
any scene with Daddy, that
he is a
actor,
creepy individual.
wow. Yeah, his name is John Brompton, and well, his character name is Eric, but of course we know him as Daddy because he's Lola's daddy. And
Yeah,
he plays that role with just the right amount of what it needed.
yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, I like any scenes with him. I love the ending. All the stuff shot in the road.
on the road, yeah,
Yeah.
all of that's great. I liked the scene where he escapes. I thought it was very well filmed and a really cool idea to put the camera right on the POV of the car chasing him. That was really an interesting, very Sam Raimi-y thing there, right in the middle of it. And then he gets in a tree and they're throwing rocks at him
I
to
know, and
knock
I
him
was like,
down.
it's a good scene because you actually feel like he might get away for a second, and then he
Yeah,
doesn't, of course.
yeah, of
Um,
course. As someone who has dealt with depression and stuff before, I really liked his setup for his character. I liked him dealing with his mother and feeling guilty. And you
mhm,
can see all of this loss of he's blaming himself for his dad's death and all of that. And he thinks his mom is blaming him too, to the point that he literally wears a razor around his neck to cut himself whenever he needs to. The whole tempting fate and should I die rock climb scene was really great and good character work and necessary, I think, for him to
mhm.
show how desperate he could really be by the end of this. I did think the torture itself got extreme to the point of just borderline ludicrous.
The lobotomy scene's a little ludicrous, yeah,
Yeah,
because
well, bad enough to do the drill a hole just enough to pour the hot water in, but
right,
then it's not big enough, Daddy, make it bigger. It's like, Jesus. Okay, we really went there, did we, huh? Okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah, because you just have to wonder how much he would have been able to function after that.
oh yeah,
Clearly, they were very good at what they did if they didn't pierce his brain or whatever. But yeah,
right.
other than that, that actor, we're talking about scenes, that actor alone is doing the majority of his work without speaking
At all.
because we neglected to tell you folks the first thing she does is shoot bleach into his larynx so that it destroys his vocal cords and he can't talk or scream.
Okay. That answers like 5 questions I have. Because the first one was, what the hell is she injecting him with? What did it do? What's the point? I've got that like 3 or 4 times down in the watch of it. But then I also have, okay, it was brilliant to not have him scream. To have this weird screech instead of his screams was really creepy and really terrifying. Um, but so it was bleach. But see, it didn't say bleach on the container, it was just blue. I didn't
um,
know what it was.
I may know that from notes, but I could have sworn there was some scene like like is it in that bottle on the table in front of the dad? Maybe is that a bleach bottle? Maybe I'm not
No.
from Australia, so I don't know what bleach bottles look like over there, but it looks like cleaning stuff.
Well, she sucks it out right in front of the camera. I
It's like
mean,
blue.
and it's blue.
It's like
And then
Windex.
that's the first thing they do is inject him with it. And I was going, what did they inject him? What did it do? It didn't knock him out. It didn't do anything. I don't
Mm-mm.
understand what's happening. Blah, blah, blah. So they needed more explanation on that because I didn't get it at all. Even
Okay.
by the end of it, I didn't know why he had,
Well,
why he,
I do think that since this is a foreign film, some of these things they may take for granted that we wouldn't know. Like maybe they do recognize that bottle in
oh, yeah,
Australia.
it may
So
be, Yeah, it may be a typical bleach bottle to them.
But
So
it
they
is
know.
blue, which makes me think of ammonia in Windex. So if it was Windex put into your vocal cords, it would have probably been just as bad. I would think. I don't know. Who knows? I don't want to ever try it.
No. Although we have heard political people say just drink bleach would work for you to cure your COVID. So yeah.
Any scene, just the fact it's not really a scene, it's just him as an actor, I think, had a lot of range to be able to do all that stuff without speaking.
It also did take me a little longer, and maybe I'm dense. It took me a little longer to realize the patronage of Bright Eyes. They called her Bright Eyes, and I was going, is that another? Oh, so she's probably got 3 or 4 victims, so he got to have one himself. And I thought she was another victim, like the lady from the grocery store or whatever. I didn't really get mommy until she says, you killed mommy.
I feel like she was the first, and then they started doing it to his daughter's friends.
Hadn't gotten that, but maybe, yeah.
Daddy clearly has an interest in his little girl. that's
Well, it gets
that's
kind of creepy in a scene or two there.
Oh yeah, no. There's definitely some incestuous stuff going on there, and I think
I don't know
that
if it's ever been fulfilled, though. I got the impression that it hadn't happened.
well, I got the impression that it was about to be fulfilled when they started dancing together.
Well, yeah, because she goes, Daddy, it's always been you. You've
Right.
always been my blah, blah, blah. And you think, oh, he's going to get his wish, and it's going to get really weird up in here. But thank God we decided to fight them.
I think that's when he stands up, and I can't remember what it's when I think he's already nailed to the floor with the knives.
Oh,
But
yeah, he is.
But he stands up to, I don't know, he distracts them somehow. Anyway.
Well, and by the way, that's the other one too that is borderline ludicrous. If you stab a large paring knife into my feet, I'm
It's
probably
more
not
of yeah, it's a chef's
walking.
knife. It's not a paring knife.
Okay. Well, I'm not walking for a while. I'm not going to be standing up and walking, and I'm not going to be driving a car, and I'm not going to be climbing over dead bodies to get out of a cellar.
No, but it is a good way to give him a weapon later.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Bright Eyes, as you mentioned, is the mother, and we notice immediately when you see her sitting at the table with them that all is not there with Bright Eyes. There's a hole in her forehead for one
There's a hole in her forehead for one thing. Yeah.
So all of a sudden we've got, as you mentioned, keys galore, a very Texas Chainsaw Massacre scene of a incestuous torture porn family at a table with a guest of honor, of course.
Yeah.
Very much like the girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. She's tied to the chair, though, instead of nailed to the floor.
The fact that you had to say that phrase is just so telling.
Any other scenes?
She's tied to the chair and not nailed to the floor.
I have a lot of scenes that I love. I love when they go through her photo album and you start seeing all these other victims and you realize, oh, the kid that he swerved to miss in the road was one of the ones that got away. He is the one that got away. They mention
Correct.
him as being the one that got away. That's not in the cellar.
Right. Yeah, that one.
I have to say, let me break for just a second. I know you had never seen this movie and you went into it blind. I did the same thing a couple of years ago. I was like, this movie gets high ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm just going to start it and see what happens. And I was riveted. I was like, holy
I'm sure you
shit.
were.
I was like, I was cringing and covering up my eyes. I was like, nah. The whole time I was watching it, I was like, David is going to kill me. We're going to watch this.
And curious, this is body horror. It has pain in it, but it's not a hostel. It's not a
No.
demented to the point of you're just enjoying the pain. It's not a human centipede. It's not one of those kind of things.
No, there's reasoning behind the scenario.
Yeah, accepting the dementia of these two individuals works. And you can see it's a big key for me is Pearl. It's that rural insanity that to them is totally normal, and it's works for them. It's just other people have to suffer for that to work for them, for their mindset to work.
I didn't even have Pearl as a key. That's a good one.
Well, yeah, just because of her being able to switch so easily from this cute little coquettish teenage girl to suck it. You're like going, what the hell? Yeah. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's an attempted rescue by Mia's father at one point when he realizes what's going on. He gets killed.
The
He ends up,
sheriff, yes.
yeah, he ends up in the basement, food for the cannibals.
For the cannibals, yes, the previous victim.
And then I can't remember how he gets away.
He builds a tower out of bones and bodies.
Yeah, he ends up killing Daddy. He gets up and kills Daddy, and she gets mad and pushes him into the pit.
Yeah.
So she says, I'm going to go kill your mother, and then I'm going to go kill your girlfriend. And she leaves. He ends up having to stack all the bodies up in order to reach the cellar door and get out, which to me seems impossible because it seemed really deep. And his girlfriend figures out what's going on, and she comes out to meet him and sees Lola walking down the road, all bloody and deranged. And Lola throws her scrapbook at the car, and she it scares her, and she pulls over, and of course Lola comes after her. By that time, Brent has used the policeman's car to get away from the house and ends up going and saving the day by basically running over Lola in the road. I just wanted to say that in case folks out there wanted to know what does eventually happen. Did you have any other scenes? Did you want to move on to cast?
Cast is fine. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a lot because obviously this is an Australian film, so I don't know a lot of these people. Xavier Samuel played Brent. I don't know much he's done. I think he's great. Robin McLeavy is the star, though, probably as Lola. And she was prepared by Sean Byrne. He had some specific criteria he wanted her to do. He said that she needed to research Jeffrey Dahmer, which makes perfect sense because of the whole lobotomizing thing.
Oh, yeah.
But he wanted her to watch Misery, Natural Born Killers, and anything by Quentin Tarantino.
I can see that. I can see all of those keys. Yep.
Right. John Brumpton played Daddy. I think he's great in this role. There was another actor considered for it who you may not be familiar with. I am. His name is John Jarratt. He was the killer in Wolf Creek, another Australian slasher film. He turned the role down because it would have been typecasting because he's already played a very notorious killer. Wolf Creek is on our list, by the way. I haven't seen it in decades, but it is a scary film about.
I remember it being scary or reading about it.
So have you seen it? Okay. Anyway.
I don't think I've seen it.
Anyway, he's like a Crocodile Dundee serial killer, like the guy with the really deep Australian accent and the big knife. That kind of killer. Anyway, he didn't want to take the role, and I'm glad he didn't because I think this guy that plays Daddy's perfect. And then Richard Wilson plays Jamie. Victoria Thane is Holly, the girlfriend. Jessica McNamee is Mia. I think she's great. She's got a good look. She's the goth girl. I think she could easily do other films, or probably has, just in Australia. And then who else? Andrew Gilbert's Paul. Anne Scott Pendlebury plays Bright Eyes. She has no dialogue. She just basically sits there as zombified. As far as awards, though, this movie, when it came out, was his debut, and it got scads of nominations across the indie circuit as far as being a really hot film. As a matter of fact, a lot of people tend to like this movie more than The Devil's Candy. I think The Devil's Candy is stronger, but It's got a little bit of supernatural to it, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, the Devil's Candy is more Hereditary-esque than this one. This
Yeah.
one's more like a straight torture boy. It's just Chainsaw.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
one won the People's Choice Award Midnight Madness category at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2009. It also won the Siren Award for Best International Feature at the Lund International Film Festival in Sweden. So it won 2 big awards and was nominated for a bunch others
Okay.
in 2009. So that's what put Sean on the map. But like I said, he was, I guess, content directing commercials until he waited 6 years later and did The Devil's Candy.
Hmm.
So,
Curious. Yeah, and I think it's all him. Both of these movies are very representative of him and his skills, and he's good. I'm hoping his shark movie will be good too.
oh, me too. I am looking forward to that one for sure. Do you have any trivia before we move on to keys or anything else you
Trivia.
want to say? I've
Let
got
me
a little
check.
bit.
Just I don't think I have any trivia, so to speak, other than just more scene or watch notes. I've got in my watch notes creepy doll sex montage to that song. The song he picked for this is creepy now. I will never be able to hear that song and not be creeped out.
I can't
It's
remember it. I
it's
vaguely remember it. It's like a love song, isn't it?
yeah, it's Am
Yeah.
I Pretty Enough?
Yes.
I don't
It
know if that's
sounds
the
like something
title.
Jewel would sing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it is, and the first time you really see it, she's got an old ancient like CD player boombox, and she's playing it, and it's just this montage of dolls in weird sex positions. And it's just, I was going, oh my God, this is going to get really weird, isn't it?
And that
So,
scene where her daddy gives her the dress and she puts it on and he stands there and watches her
yeah,
undress.
that is so pushing the creepy factor a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like when directors push buttons like that sometimes. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
this may be considered a key, but Lola's injecting his vocal cords with bleach was taken from a real life serial killer and torturer named Robert Berdella, who would do the same thing to a number of his victims for the same reason. I did not look him up. Have you heard of him?
I've not heard of Bordella, but now I will.
Yeah, I'm curious. So that was lifted as obviously the lobotomized things were definitely inspired by Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a
In
huge key.
in an interview with writer director Sean Byrne, film critic Chase Whale called antagonist Lola Princess one of the greatest villains in horror history. She's memorable. She is definitely a memorable villain.
Well, yeah, and she's memorable to the point of one of my biggest keys was wait until dark because of the knife crawl for
Right.
one thing, but
Right.
also just her bent, her sadistic. She's memorable.
Well,
You know.
well, I think what it is, and you and I have talked about this with other movies like, I don't know, I Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left, where you want the killer to bite it so hard that by the end of this movie, you're like, smash her head, run over
Yeah.
her. You are ready to kill her because you hate her so much. And I think
Yes.
that's why she's so memorable. Just
Yeah,
seeing
the
her smile makes
cruelty-
my skin crawl.
The cruelty and just total sociopathy that she has makes you go, this person doesn't deserve to live. No,
No.
please. No, we need to kill
And
them.
she needs to die badly.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes.
She needs to die badly. Yes.
Oh, never mind. I'm not going to even talk. Basically, I had a long note that I can sum up is that basically they don't have proms in Australia. They're known as school formals. So there was a little bit of dancing around the writing there to make this appear as if it would, or to appeal to international audiences. So,
Yeah, I think that's just done through publicity, though, because in the movie, they only call it a dance. Will you go to the dance with me?
Right. But they give her the whole pink dress. And if we're moving into keys, that's pure Carrie.
Pure Carrie. Oh, yeah. My first three keys were 3 o'clock high, because the scenes in the high school are elevated. They don't feel, they're like in a hyper reality.
I love that
With
movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
And prom night, of course, just because of the prom, bad thing happens on prom night, and the third one's Carrie. Those are the first three I just wrote down, like the first 10 minutes.
Right.
So
And of course, the prom night and Carrie have a prom in common too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Carrie also has a vengeful girl as the
Hmm.
lead, and this one has a demented girl as the lead. So
Yeah. The
same thing.
difference is that Carrie is sympathetic because she was provoked. This girl is
Well,
just
of course.
demented.
Oh yeah. Which is my next key, which is Texas Chainsaw, not just for the dinner and the whole weird funk to that, but the depravity in general, the semi-cannibalism, and the roadkill at the end. The last part of the movie takes place on the road outside.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that you're pulling some that I haven't pulled. Like I didn't even think of prom night. That's great.
well,
I have the descent because the
oh, of
minute they
course.
open the cellar doors, I'm like cannibal humanoids naked in what looks like a cave, scurrying around and eating people. I was like, this is awesome. This movie
Yep.
just went hardcore into my territory.
Oh God, yeah. As soon as they opened that and you could hear them down there crawling around, I was going, "Oh my God, Tim."
They had me with the killer girl and her demented family, but then they bring in a cellar full of monsters. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I had the descent, but I also had the road. Do you remember the road when they went to that one house and went
Yes,
downstairs?
the basement. Yes,
So
it was
that
a
was,
food locker, meat
yeah,
locker. Yeah,
meat locker.
I
You
have
had,
Marathon Man
oh, that's a good one.
because
Yeah,
instead of drilling into his teeth, he's drilling into his head.
yeah. Is it safe? Is
Yeah.
it safe?
Uh,
I had mentioned Wait Until Dark just because of Roach, the character of Roach, who's such a sadist anyway, but also the whole using a knife to climb along, to pull herself along the
right.
road is very from the movie of that. I've also, you had mentioned Misery as one of his recommendations. I definitely have that, not just because of the knife, we're going to hobble you in a unique way, but also killing the cop at
It's
the end.
right out of Misery. As soon as
Yeah,
the cop gets there, he gets killed, and it's. I
which
mean,
is also The Shining,
right.
you
You
know?
know what? That is I didn't have The Shining, but I had Misery mainly for the murder of the policeman. He didn't get run over by a lawnmower, but he breaks the glass. He knows something's wrong. He's very careful, and I'm like, girl, you don't want to go in there. This is a psycho.
Well, and in Misery, the movie, she just blows him away with the shotgun. As soon
Right.
as he looks downstairs, she shoots him in the
Oh, you know
back.
what? You're right. I'm confusing it with the book. I think the book she runs over him with the
Oh, she
lawnmower.
runs over him with the lawnmower in the book.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that there's Misery. I had Hostel just because there are torture porn elements in this movie. But here's a good one for you: Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
The mother's name is Bright Eyes.
Oh, no.
That's
Oh,
what
no.
Zira
Okay.
calls
Okay.
the Charlton
Yeah. I
Heston
know.
character.
It's
What?
Taylor.
Taylor.
Taylor. Yeah. She calls him Bright Eyes.
She
Yes.
calls him
That's
Bright
true.
Eyes
Yep. Okay. That's a good one.
because
Well, when you
because he's intelligent but so damned ugly.
Well, I have one that I got early on watching it, which is John Wick, because they kill the dog. The father kills his dog and
That's
even
right.
says, "This is the knife I used to kill your dog."
Ugh.
It just go, oh man.
That's just another reason why you want them to die.
Oh yeah. And the
Because
way
they
they
kill the
do that
dog.
with
Yeah.
the Holly, the girlfriend, rushing the dog to the vet and not making it, the dog dies on the way.
Yeah.
It's just sad, you know.
It's
So
very
yeah.
sad. You mentioned the road. I have Home, the X-Files episode,
Oh God. Uh,
which is basically about a cannibalistic family that are
Yeah,
incestuous and live in an old house.
demented cannibal family. Yep.
Exactly.
There
You
you
couldn't get any more of a key.
People Under the Stairs, that Wes Craven one. Same
Oh.
thing.
I haven't
with
seen
the
that in a
whole.
long time. I think the last time I
Uh,
saw that was at your house.
you had mentioned Jeffrey Dahmer, of course. One of my last ones is, well, I said Pearl because except it's the mommy daddy switch. In Pearl, her dad is an invalid that she has to take care of, and it's really
Yes.
creepy, and she feeds him, and there's a weird I love my daddy weird vibe there. And in this, it's the mother that is zombified, like you said.
It's a
And
role reversal. Yeah, it
yeah,
sure is. And she's like, she can't move really. The
right.
the the,
No,
the dad couldn't stand up because he was wheelchair bound, but she can't really move because she's lobotomized. Yeah.
right. But he couldn't talk either and everything else. And I think in both of them, they end up killing them. She kills her mom, and Pearl
Yeah.
kills her dad.
Yeah.
And so there was those reminded me of it. I don't know if it's necessarily an influence, but it definitely did remind me of that. So,
Yeah. I have another one that should be obvious. Mad Max.
oh yeah,
First of all, it's Australian. Second of all, these shots that are behind me right now are straight out of a George Miller movie. And then that shot at the end where she gets backed up into, and it's so abrupt and they cut away so fast, but you
oh
see
yeah,
her head hit the bumper and then it's like credits roll.
yeah. Cut
Yeah.
done.
And it's like,
Um,
finally, she's dead.
and I've got it's not a key, but it's an impression. This actress reminded me a lot of Aubrey Plaza.
Yes.
All the way through it. Very similar look to her, very similar. The way Aubrey Plaza can play that dementia
Oh
that you
my
go,
God. I love her. And
she's awesome.
I am actually watching Agatha All Along right now, and she is in it. And she is
Oh, she is.
playing one of those great characters that she does that's just unhinged. I love her.
Like in Legion. That character she played in Legion was
Yes.
great.
Yes. And when we were watching it the other night, we just watched the first episode, and I told Dennis, I said, "Oh my God, Aubrey Plaza's in that." He's like, "Who is she?" I said, "You will love her."
Hmm.
I just
She's
knew.
great.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Have him YouTube all of her late night appearances, like with the talk show host. She's hilarious.
Okay.
She freaks everybody out. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, doesn't matter. When she's on their show, she's always saying and doing the weirdest shit.
Okay, I will do that because he watches the clips from those shows, usually just the
Yeah.
monologues. But okay.
Yeah, he would like Audrey in all of her late night appearances.
Yeah, she does look, Aubrey to me is a little prettier than this girl. But
Yes.
Aubrey also wears a lot of makeup, and this girl doesn't have a lot of makeup on.
Yeah, and I think they intentionally kept her looking very drab in this movie. Her
Yeah,
first scene,
Aubrey,
definitely.
if Aubrey was in this movie, she would have played Mia because she's very goth looking with lots of heavy makeup
Yeah,
sometimes. So,
yeah.
anyway, interesting. I don't know if I have any other keys. You
I
mentioned Wait
do
Until
not.
Dark. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that my last one was Mad Max. So I think I'm good there. How would you like to sum it up, David?
You should do the summing because I got to do the final close. But
That's
so
cool.
you stumbled, give me a history again. You stumbled upon this how in your
Um,
original, you
uh,
just said, oh, it looked good on Rotten Tomatoes?
a few years back when we first started doing this podcast, I started culminating a list. Is that the right word? Culminating? Yeah. Of horror movies. But then there were a lot that I didn't know or had never heard of. And so I was like, I don't want to just throw a stinker out there without having something to go by. So I started using Rotten Tomatoes and looking for higher ranking movies. And this movie and I keep wanting to say Hard Candy, but it's The Devil's Candy, both ranked really highly and were pleasant surprises to me because not always
Mhm.
are they great movies. And I just think this director has a clear style that he is a very strong director. And I'm completely puzzled by why he hasn't done more films. And I'm very much looking forward to his next one. So, and I told you that when we did The Devil's Candy.
Devil's Candy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't connect it. So when I started watching this and sat down and started watching and it said Burn, I was going, okay, the name sounds familiar, but am I thinking of the actor? blah, blah, blah. And then it was like halfway through it, I went, this reminds me of something. I paused it and looked it up and went, oh yeah, Tim told me that. This is the guy that
Yeah.
did Devil's Candy.
Well, and you also hit upon another strength of his, and it's casting. The cast of Devil's Candy is great too.
Yeah.
Every single person in it is good.
And he's really good with his females.
Yeah.
His female characters are very strong. They're very together, even when they're in situations that are torturous or painful or whatever, like Holly in this one, or the young girl in Devil's Candy. All of his casting choices are really good.
Yeah, and his male leads are not overtly masculine. This Brent kid is not real masculine. And the guy, I cannot think, Ethan Embry, I think's his name, that played the lead in The Devil's Candy. He was the son, the former alcoholic son on Grace and Frankie. He plays the lead, and he's a long-haired artist in that movie. So I like the fact that he casts strong females and doesn't need overtly masculine males.
And then can take a secondary villain or the villain and make them so creepy and weird and strange. Daddy in this one, and then the guy licking the tears off people, and
and that girl waking up in bed with him.
Yeah.
Remember? Oh my God. I love that movie.
So both of them are strong. Well, so, and I guess in closing, Tim and I both obviously like this film. I don't know if it's for everybody. I think you have to be into a little body horror and dementia in order to
this is a gory film. It's a gory film.
It is a gory film, and it's a pain film. I can see gore like Scanners, where you blow somebody's head off. That doesn't bother me. But drilling into someone's skull, yeah, that gets to me. So if you're in that and like that, we would love to know what you think about this movie. And if you aren't into that and want to try something, try it and then tell us what you think. But we'd love for you to give us a comment down below, give us a comment on Apple, give us a thumbs up, stars, all that fun stuff. We have a website with all of our past episodes. So if you liked this particular horror bent, or you're into sci-fi, there are dozens and dozens of titles to choose from. And you can either see us or listen to us, because we're a podcast primarily, and now a YouTube channel. And we also have a Patreon, of course, if you want to support the show and help us keep doing this. Any little bit helps. And we have some special material on our Patreon for you guys. Tim, next week, let's go somewhere different.
So we're going to space, I believe. I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure it's a different planet.
It's a different. No, it's not a different planet.
It's not a different planet. Okay. It's just a far future planet.
It is science fiction, and it has one of your favorite actors of all time.
I already know.
It'll be interesting to see how you react to it. So can't wait. You guys come back and join us next week too, because it's going to be a good episode. We're going to like it.
Awesome.
See you then.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.
Can't start the car. Johnny has